I feel like diet culture sets you up to never be good enough.
Did you burn 500 calories on the treadmill today? No? Me either.
I mean, anybody can sit with us. We're just really not about diet culture.
But literally, happiness doesn't come from a low-calorie, high-intensity life. I actually do like carrots.
I do too. They're my favorite.
Welcome to the Fit Fueled Free podcast.
So basically, diets suck.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 41. I'm Jenna.
I'm Danielle. Today, we're going to be interviewing Molly Bremer. She is a registered dietitian who specializes in the treatment of eating disorders through an intuitive eating and health at every size lens. Molly has a Master of Science in Human Nutrition, Foods, and Exercise with a concentration in Behavioral and Community Science and an undergraduate degree in HNFB with a concentration in Dietetics from Virginia Tech. Molly completed her dietetic internship at UVA, which had a strong clinical emphasis that helped her learn about nutrition support in pediatrics. From there, she interned at the Partnership for a Healthier America, and after that, joined Mind Body Health, where she sees clients and speaks at local schools and universities. So we're super excited to talk with her today.
Okay. Can you hear now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my God. Good. Okay.
Welcome.
Yeah,
Thanks
thanks.
for coming. It's nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you guys too. From the comfort of our own rooms.
Yes.
So we just want to start off by asking you to share what you do.
So, hello. I am a registered dietitian at a private practice called Mind Body Health in Arlington, Virginia, right outside Washington, D.C. And I work there full-time, seeing clients mainly for disordered eating and eating disorders, but really see kind of whoever comes in the door, who gives us a call for GI or hormones or kind of whatever. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I've been there for a year. Yeah.
Awesome.
How long have you been doing that for?
I've been at Mind Body Health for a year.
Okay.
But I've worked at other private practices starting last December.
Okay, awesome. I was trying to think what our difference was in schooling and year, because I couldn't remember how far apart we were in undergrad at Tech.
Yeah, I think, I graduated 2016 and you were 2014?
Yeah, but I didn't go back for my internship until 2016 and then became an RD in 2017. So.
Yeah. Okay. I think I became an RD in 2018.
Okay. So yeah. Okay. But we ended up pretty similar timeline then.
Yeah. Yeah. Back in the day.
Yes. So we would love to hear a little bit about how not only you became a dietitian, but what really got you into the world of health at every size and intuitive eating, kind of the anti-dietitian realm.
Yeah.
Dietitian.
Yeah. I didn't even pick up on that. Yeah. So I started kind of at Virginia Tech, not really feeling like I belonged totally with my cohort and with the other HNFU students. For one, I didn't run half marathons every day. And I never have really enjoyed salads that much. So it always kind of felt like a little bit of an odd one out. I remember talking to Professor Cox, who was our dietetics program director, and crying in her office as usual and telling her that I didn't really feel like I fit in and I wasn't sure if I was supposed to be in this major. And then it was kind of this summer after I graduated in 2016, before I was starting my grad school year. I went on a bike trip, but before the bike trip, we had to train for the bike trip because it was a 3-week trip. So I was pretty bored just biking on the same trail because that's the only trail I knew. And I would just do that every so often and just typed in food on podcasts. And then saw Julie Duffy Dillon's Love Food podcast and just started listening to it. And that's kind of the first time I started hearing about this stuff, and it has like really changed the way that I view dietetics and my relationship to food, and like introduced me to intuitive eating, which was pretty mind-blowing,
Yeah.
and different than anything that I was taught before. And that led me to Health at Every Size.
That's so funny that you say that, because she was the first dietitian I ever remember, and Jessica Setnick, I guess, kind of around the same time, that I remember, who even had much to say that was different from what we're so used to being taught in dietetics. And I love her podcast, and I love her, and she kind of got me, like, the people she followed, like that's how I got my toes in the water of that, as far as the other professionals. So that's so cool.
Yeah, I remember one episode in particular, where it was like a letter from a dietetic student who said that she didn't feel like she fit in. I was literally like, oh my God, did I write this and email it to her somehow? Because that is how I feel. And it was just like such a great feeling to like not feel alone. And I think that's like the power of like hearing these stories that you all have on your podcast, and hearing, like, seeing things on Instagram and things like that.
Yeah, it is really powerful when that connects. So I'm so happy that I just remember, like, I've always obviously really liked you as a person. And I was so happy when I saw that you were like getting into this work, because obviously, not that I have anything against any dietitians who don't go this route, but it just, I feel just more connected, of course, when it's in the same safe space. So it really makes my heart happy that that's the path that you like listen to your gut tell you that it wasn't right how things were, and you were able to get connected to it. That's so exciting.
Yeah, no, it's a good spot. And for all the listeners, Danielle was my nutrition counselor, because I had nutrition counseling when I was at Virginia Tech. I was a nutrition counselor, but before that I had nutrition counseling, and I thankfully had Danielle. And I think we were probably in very different spaces.
Oh my gosh. I wasn't going to say anything about that, of course, because that is more your story. But I was just thinking this morning how wrapped in diet culture I must have been at that time. I have no idea, like, why you came to see me anyway, but I know that I printed off the My Plate things for everyone, because that's what I wanted to do. And so I'm just like, I wonder what came out of my mouth to that girl. Like,
no, I agree.
oh
I was so wrapped up in it too. I was probably like, let me get more diet info. But that was such a good learning opportunity. Like, being the person receiving counseling and being like later being the one giving counseling, even if, I don't know, being a fly on the wall in my sessions from that time is probably, I would cringe the whole time now.
Yeah. So Jenna, I don't know if I think I've talked about this on here before, but in our senior year in the dietetics program, you had the opportunity, if you took health coaching as the class, to go into nutrition counseling, I guess it was called, but it was a very small, like 12 to 15 people person class. And we did counseling for students, faculty, and staff. And then we kind of like reviewed our caseload, because the dietitian who was our professor was like overseeing us, since we weren't technically certified in any way yet. So it was an incredible experience, because it was like the first taste of one-on-one counseling that we got to do before we even graduated. It was like the most valuable experience probably in my like, course load.
I didn't know you did that. Yeah, I don't think you've ever said that.
Yeah, so that's
so cool.
That is how I met Molly.
Yeah.
So Molly, so you went into like the whole dietetic world, like with the, regular thinking that like most dietitians go in with, and then it kind of shifted to like, oh, there's another approach that you can take. Was there any one thing you feel like kind of propelled you towards that? Or was it just kind of like your eyes simply being opened like through the podcast and like other perspectives that you're like, oh wow, there's another way to do this?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I feel like I definitely went in it for like a disordered way, after like high school, and then just being like, oh, I'm so into nutrition and researching nutrition, aka looking at like, I don't know, 17 or some like magazine of what nutrition is. But it definitely kind of evolved into more, I think it was like kind of evolving of like myself and like who I am as a person and what my values are. And this just like felt like it aligned way more with my personal values. I tend to kind of be a more type B person, and I don't really like to have rules, and I don't like to follow them if there are rules. So it's like kind of just like fit me. And like once I felt like I kind of came into my own through like counseling and stuff during undergrad, it kind of just started to make more sense. I think the main thing about it that made me feel more at home was that like the common humanity aspect. Like I'm not alone. Like hearing the podcast was nice because the main thing I gathered from that was like, wow, I'm not the only one who has these thoughts. And that felt awesome.
That's awesome.
That's such an important thing, even in like the dietetics realm, because we all joke about being type A, but it's impossible for every single person in a field to be the same. And I often think that like personality trait is kind of, I feel like it's kind of an insult to say you're a type A person, especially in the context of dietetics, just because we know, like you were saying, like being perfect with nutrition and like running half marathons all the time. And it's like this way of controlling your everything. And what we know, like on the other side of diet culture, is that's not actually like helping you, but it feels like it. So that is like that I feel like that's an issue with dietetic students. But I hope as we move forward, people will talk more about, so that students can have more experiences like you, where they don't have to wait years later helping people lose weight before they're like, oh, oops, this isn't right.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think it's like almost like glamorized the way like type A is like appealing to dietetic students. I'm sure, Jenna, you might have experienced this with like more of your exercise science classes and stuff, but it's, I don't know, I just don't think, I think it's okay to be different. And like, I think that it's what makes all of us kind of special. I remember, it was probably Professor Cox again, our DPD director. But I remember when she was doing that class on like how to apply for dietetic internships, she was saying that like we all have different strengths and it's just about us like utilizing it. So like some of the people in my cohort were top of students, like won like best HNFE, human nutrition foods exercise science, or human foods human nutrition foods and exercise.
There you go.
Sorry. Like student of the year, like all these like very like intelligent people. And I never had like a 4.0 or anything like that. But it was nice to kind of like find out what my strengths were and go off of that and be like, and like, I'm so glad that blah, blah, blah is good at that, because I do not love biochemistry.
Right.
And we need dietitians who get it. But it's okay if I'm not that one.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's nice that resonated with you when she said that, because that is a good reminder. Like we're not all supposed to be exactly the same.
Yeah, so that would be a rough dietetics world.
It would be. Yeah. Absolutely.
Which kind of like segues into like the health at every size stuff. Like if we all like look the same, and just like the way that everything's set up, how you have to do 4 years undergrad and then soon to be a master's, and you have to do a dietetic internship where right now you can't really receive like loans. It's just really challenging if you don't have like financial privilege. And I don't know how people do it, because it's an expensive thing to go into. But like we need more diversity of social classes and body sizes and skin colors and ethnicities and everything to like meet the needs of like America, which is a mixing bowl.
Yeah, I know. I think, were you at Fancy this past, I forget if we talked about that.
I wasn't, not in Philly.
Okay, someone brought that up, and I cannot remember the context, but obviously that's a very reoccurring conversation lately. But it is very striking. Like, the average dietitian is like a middle-aged white woman, and that's very, I think, is that does that sound like?
No, I think it's like at least 95% female. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's about it. So like already a lot of females,
right.
And then I don't know the percentages, but majority is definitely white.
Yeah, so that is problematic.
Yeah, and just like on like from a nutrition counseling perspective,
right.
like I don't know certain foods that people eat, and it's been important for me to like ask what I learned this from Veronica Garrett when I went to the Weight Inclusive Nutrition Dietetics Conference, but to like ask what like cultural foods people eat. And it's been like kind of cool. So then I just like Google image and we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
And like I learned a lot too.
That's awesome.
But yeah.
What I remember seeing that you were at that conference on your Instagram stories, but what was that experience like? It looked pretty incredible.
Yeah, it was awesome. So I met Heather Kaplan, who's a dietitian based in Arlington, but her whole practice is online, at a happy hour that was for like dietitians in DC. And eventually, like I went to the WIND conference, the first one that was in New York, the Weight Inclusive Nutrition and Dietetics Conference. And that was super cool. And like, just like hearing all the different talks and then meeting like some people who I knew from Instagram in real life and other ones who I didn't know, but now I like know pretty, like, I feel like I know them like well. That was just like a really cool experience. Then the DC one I helped out with another dietitian, Alyssa, this fall. And that one was super cool. I love that one. It was cool to just like, there were so many people at this one. The speakers were amazing. And I just like learned a lot at that one. Even though I was kind of running around. So, but Heather let us get it virtual. So I was able to like listen to them after, which was nice. And then she had another one in New York this past winter, in February. So Alyssa and I helped with that one too. And it was more like the first WIND one, a smaller group. But the speakers were again amazing. And it was just so cool to like be in the same room as people who practice from like a same perspective.
Yeah, that's an awesome feeling.
Yeah. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like I like go to conferences and like all the information's so great and I like definitely pick up nuggets from like everybody, but just like having those like real conversations is nice.
Mm-hmm. It makes you feel a little bit more sane.
Yeah, for sure.
How many times do you interact with someone who isn't familiar, like your patients or clients who don't know anything about health at every size or intuitive eating? And like, how do you approach kind of dropping that information to them? Because it can be like a complete like mind-blowing experience when you first get introduced to that. And I've talked about that a lot on our episodes, which is like, it's scary to introduce that to someone because it seems so like off the wall. So I wanted to hear that from you, like what that's like.
Yeah, that's another really good question. I've been thinking about this a lot, and actually it came up this morning too when one of my friends texted me, a dietitian friend, whose friend texted her about keto and was kind of going back and forth about that. I feel like I've been pleasantly surprised with how many clients have heard of intuitive eating less that know about health of every size, but are like pretty open to the idea. And I feel like I'm in a silo on Instagram and stuff of like being in this world. And then I have like these like droplets of interactions like throughout the week that I'm like, wow, like whether it's somebody that I'm rooming with who's doing something that's like totally not in my like zone of nutrition, or like explaining, I ran an intuitive eating group and one of my neighbors, I was talking to him and he was like, what's intuitive eating? Like all these like times that they just kind of come up. The thing that I think has been really nice is that I have like my Instagram page. So I'll just kind of be like, people just kind of know. I like, when I first started, I just friended all these people that I had on my personal account. So like, I feel like my friends know, so they know where I stand with nutrition, and then they know if they aren't doing something, then they probably aren't telling me. That's okay. Like everybody to each their own. But I think when it comes up with people who aren't familiar with like the work I do or my like food philosophy, and it could be like their first time, I just try to be like gentle about it. Well, first I ask if I want to engage or not, because oftentimes like people are talking about diets and sometimes I just don't have the energy, so I'll just be like, okay, cool. Like that sounds like it'll be an experiment. I don't know, I have no idea what I say, but I'm probably like a little bit more cynical about that, but I like to think that I'm like super chill. And then if I like choose to engage, then it's usually like I'll just be like, oh, that, like there's like this one model that I believe in as like a dietitian, and that it's like something that personally has helped me and professionally I'm like really passionate about. If you're like more interested, and then I'll just like, I have like a list of like podcasts and like people to follow on Instagram that I'll usually offer if people ask. Nobody's like super asked me, but some people have asked me for more info and like book suggestions. So just trying to be like gentle about it, because it wasn't like shoved in my face to learn.
Right.
And I don't think that that's like the best way. Like, as you guys probably know from working with clients, it's like you want to like lead them to the making the decision on their own. So I try to be like a little like seed planting, but like knowing that it's not my job to like grow them into a full intuitive eating, health at every size tree.
Yeah. Do you feel like, what's like the percentage of like clients who you work with who end up like wanting to pursue that avenue versus those who don't? Do you feel like it's like 50-50, or do you get like a lot of people who are like, oh, I actually like that sounds freeing, I would love that? Or is it depend, or are people like, no, I'm set in my ways, like I just want you to help me accomplish this goal kind of deal?
Yeah, that's a really good question. There's like a few numbers that are like running through my mind. I would say if I had to give it a percentage, I feel like when people come to me, they're probably like more like 40 in the intuitive eating, or like 30 into intuitive eating space to 20, and then like 70 to 80 never heard of it, not super interested.
Yeah.
So I don't try to come across like super strong. Like I'm trying to be gentle too, because I don't want people to be scared of like this whole new concept. Because when I've worked with therapists, they're not like, oh, I practice CBT and that's all I'm going to use for you.
Right.
Because that's just not helpful. Like I've actually never known what people are doing. So it's nice to like pull from different things. And I think another thought that came up when you were saying that, I think that I've had clients who just like eventually are like, I don't think we're a good fit. And that's okay. Like my purpose is to like plant that seed.
Yeah.
And who knows what will happen. Some like may come back, and some have come back, which is nice. But I think it's so important for people to like have their own lived experience with it.
Yep.
So like that's what's powerful.
Yeah.
It actually is really nice to have this conversation, like obviously for the purpose of other people hearing, but just for me personally, because I work with other dietitians, but I'm the only one that in my practice who's fully immersed in the anti-diet world. And so I kind of feel a little bit crazy and out on a limb a lot of times just in conversations that I'm immersed in regularly. And to hear you say that you also feel like you have to tiptoe it so gently, that is interesting, because that's like a fact, like that's who like you are, but even in your own practice, it's kind of a similar thing, and how you have a list of the resources. Like I have the same thing, books, podcasts, and Instagram people to follow.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Because I think I was just telling someone this the other day that I can say whatever to you, and I might be like perfectly well spoken. I might have all the right answers. I mean, I don't know who has every right answer, but I could say all the right things. But if you don't explore it on your own, it's not really gonna, like, you need to do that outside work, outside of our conversation, to like get those light bulbs going. Like I might prompt it, but you have to do that work. Mm-hmm. So it's cool to hear that you have that same opinion and philosophy on that.
Yeah, there was actually like a very clear example of like a client that I spoke to last week, and I didn't hear, I don't know what happened with us scheduling before the coronavirus, but I don't know if we like changed something around. We usually have like a set time that we talk. But I didn't hear from her from a little bit. So I reached out to her like last week, and then, which is like a month into Corona stuff. And then we like talked later in the week, and she was saying that she, like, once Corona happened, she just kind of like felt so out of control with everything that she just wanted to have control again. So she like went immediately back to food and exercise, and was like very strict with things and restrictive and very rigid about exercise. And she just like didn't really talk to her therapist or me because she knew how we would feel about it. And she was like, I know that you wouldn't like it, but I was like, no, I'm so glad that you had that experience, because this is like evidence to support like it didn't lead to anything that she was desiring. And I think that that's like so much more powerful than like anything that I could tell her, like you were saying, Danielle.
Like the thoughts aren't the problem, it's the actions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, exactly. Like they can think, like I could think about something all day, but like once I like have that experience and I have like data points to prove that this isn't like leading to what I'm looking for, that's way more powerful. And like letting me know that like, okay, something's not working, I want to change.
Yeah. It is really, it's so cool to watch that growth. That's like how me and Jenna even became like friends, is because we have the same philosophy, just from a different perspective, obviously, with her being a trainer and me as a dietitian. But like just watching these women, specifically, we both work with men too, but more obviously our hearts are going to be more with people we can understand better.
Yeah, totally.
But watching these women like destroy themselves because of all of the diet culture things they were trying to use to remedy inside things, and we kind of like bonded over that, just because it hurts to watch people suffer. But when you start to see their growth, that is like the best feeling in the world.
Totally. Yeah. And even during those hard times, I'm like trying not to be the annoying dietitian person, cheerleader who's like, oh my gosh, this is so great that your world is like falling apart and meals are so much harder. But I'm like, this is also like when the magic happens. But I like try to like let them find that out on their own, which has been really hard for me to do, and something I've been working on currently and probably for a while. But yeah, it's just like such a good feeling to see those things like start to click.
Yeah, it's very rewarding work, as much as sometimes you want to pull your hair out because you're like, diet culture is the worst. But the other side is just like incredible.
Seriously, we should like all have like anti-diet stress balls, like right by us.
That would be amazing.
I know. Or we'll just like pull them out in client sessions and just like start squeezing them when they tell us things.
That would be great. That would really get the point across pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm drinking kombucha, by the way.
Oh, nice. I was
wanted
wondering.
that. I feel I like to put it in a wine glass because I like wine glasses. I just think they're fancy.
They are fancy.
That's
but
so
I want
fun.
to clarify that I'm not consuming alcohol during our recording. Not that you would judge me, but I just feel like I needed to say that.
I actually was admiring it. I was like, wow, maybe I should have gotten a glass.
When we first started recording, we had to drink because we were so scared.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I totally would have had to.
We each had like a beer the first time we recorded because I was like, I can't talk in front of people. Like, this is so weird. So we're like, we just had a beer and had a casual conversation.
Yeah.
I know. You guys are a great duo. I mean, it's hard to find like anti-diet, dietitians, as we talked about, but personal trainers.
We're rare.
There's like one. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know a lot of people who take the same stance as me in the fitness realm, so
yeah, sounds like a pretty lonely, like silent place.
Yeah. I don't know if this is a patronizing thing to say, but I hope not, but I'm gonna say it anyway, and you can tell me if it's unacceptable and we'll leave it out. But it's been really cool to watch like even your growth, Jen, in this world, because even though we both have had the same like philosophy for people's like hearts, I think there was just some parts that you hadn't gone through yourself yet in the like education of it that I had already done, but I'm not like gonna shove that down your throat. Like we just said, like that's everyone's journey. So to like watch you continue to grow in that, and like you were saying, I don't know how to put an exercise guide out without focusing on measurements, but like watching the stuff you post every day, and I'm just like, oh, I'm so glad she did it, because you could have like easily copped out and just gone along with what everyone else is doing, but you are like staying true to you and growing in it. It's just like is literally the most powerful, because you're so like so smart in your field, it's your expertise, and so to see that come together, it's like I'm so glad. So anyway, I just wanted to say that, but thank you for saying that, Molly, because we love working together.
I mean, I feel like there's so just like the way to like you can profit so easily from diet culture. Like if you were gonna post like that workout thing that's like, and you'll lose 10 pounds in a week, or like if Danielle and I posted like a meal plan that promised weight loss, like it just like seems like such an easy out. And sometimes I'm like, oh, that would be nice. And I just like didn't know what I know, and I could just live my life as I was in undergrad and stuff like that. But like I feel like we can't. Like we know ethically that's like not where we are, and like our values are so much stronger.
Yeah, it's like once you know, you can't like not tell other people, because you're like, you can have freedom in this. Like you don't have to live by these rules.
Seriously, I know. That's been like the big thing. Yeah, it's just been cool. Like even I moved here, I like live in a townhouse, and I didn't know any of my roommates. I just found them on Facebook.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but it was like cool because they even said like when you first came in, like when we knew that, like because I had to write a little bio, and they knew that I was a dietitian, and they were like, ooh, we were like a little nervous to have you come in, because like if you were a dietitian, then you could be like judging us about your food. I know. And I was like, oh, do not worry. Like they were like, this is like, it's like been so nice to have you be here, because like it's nothing like we really thought that it was going to be like at the beginning.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
I know.
Someone apologized to me in a group setting for something I was doing recently because they like eating ice cream, and I was like, I'm sorry, I think you've got this wrong. I don't care. Yeah.
I know. And now when people say things like, I remember I got asked at a bar, it was like last year around this time, and this group of people were like, oh, you're a dietitian, like what's the healthiest food in the world or something, and I was like, ice cream. I was like, ice cream is so good, because it like elicits really positive memories. You usually have it in summer when you're like with your friends and family at the beach or at the pool. It's like individualized to each person. So like I like cookies and cream, and sometimes I like vanilla, and sometimes I like chocolate, and then like other people like rainbow sprinkles and like, I don't know, cherry ice cream and all these different things. And then you can put whatever toppings you like on it to even individualize it more. And it's like freeze dried or in a cone or like soft served, hard. I don't know why I always start with freeze dried, but like airplane ice cream or astronaut ice cream, or like sandwiches and things like that. I don't know. And then it has carbs, fat, protein. It just has everything. And I feel like I would not be saying this a few years ago.
Yeah.
But like now you can look at it in like such a different way.
Yeah.
I love the that example for like the personalization, like how like everyone wants their individualized nutrition plan. It just made me think like if you just wrote, oh, it's mint chocolate chip ice cream, like,
with like chocolate sprinkles on. I know, that'd be amazing. If somebody asked me for a meal plan, maybe I'll just send them that. Select your ice cream and your topping.
Colors of the rainbow.
Yeah. What brand? Yeah. A lot of options.
Oh, that kills me. So there's probably more than one thing, but is there any particular part of the work that you do that just like sets your world on fire when you talk about it and getting to advocate for and maybe even learn more about? And I ask very loaded questions.
Yeah. That's a good one. That's like such a good question though. Like even personally, like for me to think about it. I think that I've noticed one of the things I get most excited about is when I've like spoken at schools. So I've spoken to like a few of the private schools in like the DC area, and I have like this PowerPoint that I just like adjust every time. I usually like try to change all the slides into like the school colors to make it a little bit more fun. And then like every time I like find things, I'll like add stuff, but it's been so fun. Like I get like a little bit nervous before, but I'm like mostly just like excited to share this like totally different thing with people. And usually it's like in some capacity, like they need to hear it. Like there's been like a lot of more cases of eating disorders, or there's like bullying around food, or like the counselors kind of reach out looking for somebody to talk. And it's been really cool to just kind of like ease some of these kids' minds. Like the questions that they ask at the end, I like totally would see myself asking at the end too. But like, I'm always like, what would have been like if I had an anti-diet dietitian speak at my like high school when I was like in the thralls of disordered eating and tracking and things like that. So I think that like really lights my fire. I love like thinking about it in like a preventative way, and knowing that like this isn't going to prevent everything. Like eating disorders are the perfect storm of so many other things, like genetics and life experience and environmental. But knowing that like I could possibly have like a positive impact and like on somebody's relationship to food is what gets me going.
It's literally amazing.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it's cool like doing like the micro work, and it's also been like something that I value to like trying to make sure I do micro and macro. So like you all with like the podcast, like that's awesome. Like I think I'll reach out to more schools, and like I have my Instagram page that I'll like do like more macro stuff. Like that's kind of what I view it as, is like trying to reach more people than just like the clients that I see. But talking to the like middle school, high school kids is a lot of fun. I think they think I'm like really weird, but it's like been pretty fun.
That's awesome. It's fun to be at an age where you don't care if other kids think you're weird, because you don't have skin in the game anymore.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just like whatever.
I know. I love working with the adolescents because I just know that, like, I try to use like hip terms and they're like, no, nobody says these anymore. And like last week, my roommate, because I had to move downstairs because my internet wasn't working, but I had like our sound machines on. And I was talking to one of my adolescent clients, and then all of a sudden at the end, I was like, oh shoot, it's like her birthday in a few days. So I like lit a candle, and then I just like started singing happy birthday to her, like maintaining eye contact through the computer. And my roommate was like, yeah, I can't hear what you're saying, but then were you singing happy birthday at one point? I was like, yeah. She's like, it's pretty weird. I was like, yeah, I think my adolescents think it's like really weird when I do this, but it's like pretty funny for me. So
That's awesome.
We'll do it. Yeah.
It's so cool that they ask you questions about that kind of stuff, though. That really like gives me hope that we can, the more we talk about this stuff, that we can make a change, though, for real. Like, obviously, we're not going to eliminate eating disorders, but we can change it. Because I've also recently heard stories about increase, because I'm doing my IADEP certification right now.
Oh, nice.
So in the second core course, I just finished that lecture. And they were talking about how there's like an increased amount of middle schoolers talking about how they're having to track their calories now and like learn about how much they're supposed to eat and like healthy eating. And I didn't learn about that till my junior year of high school.
Yeah.
So like if that's starting younger and like I never had to track my food, like that was terrifying to hear that that's happening. But I'm not surprised because now we're like trying to prevent obesity by addressing the childhood obesity epidemic. And it's like, that's trash. So, I'm so glad you're doing that work.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough. And like, it's tough to like see past self, like totally going into this. Like, I think even like talking about like childhood, air quotes, childhood obesity and things like that was like a main draw of why I wanted to go into this work. Cause I was like, I can save all these kids and help them be healthier. But really like defining what health is to me was like the major step in that equation and like recognizing privilege.
Yeah.
So
also, by the way, everyone who's listening, I was using quotes because we're looking at each other in Zoom and I did air quotes, but I didn't say it out loud. Good call, Molly.
Oh yeah.
But it is kind of frightening to think like how much I wanted to help, like you just said, like change people by making them like not weigh as much. And that's what I thought was the work that I was going to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to put anyone down because I know like we're never going to fully convince everyone that you're allowed to be different body sizes, but it actually makes me sweat. Like I feel so frustrated that was like something I was trying to do because I'm like, that seems so gross to me now. So it's crazy how like just a few years can put you in such a different spot.
Totally. Yeah. And just like having self-compassion for like our past selves who were like thought that we were doing well and good in the world, and then just like kind of like thinking it's like kind of gross now. And like it gives us like empathy for like the people who aren't there yet, or maybe we'll never get there. But like I think like it was so lucky for us, like we're all like young and like in our 20s, and finding out this stuff now is like amazing. Finding out earlier would have been super cool, but like being there like now and still being young and like we're just like getting like into our careers and finding our own paths, it's like a very empowering feeling.
Yeah. Thank goodness for the self-compassion concept, because it would be impossible to like keep moving forward without that. It takes work though, for sure.
Oh yeah. Something that I'm still like working on too, and like giving myself grace. But that was like the main, when I took like a self-compassion test online. It's like anybody can take it, and it's the one that Dr. Kristen Neff set up. And I was like pretty low, but I took it last week again because I sent it to one of my clients and I was like, I wonder where I'm at now, and it was better. So
cool.
There is proof that you can change these things even if they're so embedded in you to not.
That's a great like That's such a great thing to measure. Instead of measuring our waistlines, let's measure our improved self-compassion.
Yeah.
Is it a free test?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's on selfcompassion.org, I think.
Right.
Yeah, I've taken that one.
I haven't taken it.
I think that's the only one that exists. Like, I think that is like the place.
Yeah.
Is that what you understand for self-compassion stuff?
Yeah. I've heard like Dr. Neff is like kind of the go-to gal for all this stuff. And yeah, it is a cool metric to use. And I think it always, like, when clients are like more hesitant about it, I always think of Rebecca Scritchfield said this in Body Kindness, that like you can't hate yourself into health. And like so often myself and people I know or clients or others are like trying to like hate ourselves into health. And it's just, it doesn't work.
And that's what you get when you have your health assessed at your PCP or wherever you go. That's literally what happens. If there's a negative marker of any kind, whether or not we believe that that's a true indicator of health based on current research, you're told that's what's wrong with you. And then you're supposed to just be driven to fix that because you're now inherently unworthy. And so it's like, it's tragic that that's how the system operates.
Yeah, I totally agree. And there's like definitely some like systematic healthcare changes that need to take place. I mean, even when I saw my OB-GYN this past fall, after like doing like a yearly checkup, she like brought up my weight and changes and things and was like questioning me. And I was like, lady, things are different, but it's not like anything to be concerned about. And it was just like so triggering because then I was like, but should I be concerned about it? But I know I shouldn't, but like, I don't know. And that was just like a small experience. Like that was like one of my first experiences having like some sort of stigma. Whereas like, I know so many others who just try to get like strep throat swab and then practitioners are like, oh, well, you should also lose weight. It's like,
yeah,
I have strep throat. This has nothing to do with my weight. Yeah.
I went to the urgent care. I'm quite certain I've said this before, but I want to tell you this story. Went to the urgent care with my mom a few months ago. She's fine, but something obviously was urgent. She had an infection from a surgery wound, and on her paperwork, they addressed her BMI and her recommendation for weight loss. And I didn't see it then. Like, I carried her stuff, but like I didn't look at it because I was right there. I heard what they said, but she sent me a picture of it later, and I was like, I almost called the place because I was just, I don't know what that would have done. Nothing. It wouldn't have done anything other than been an outlet for my anger.
Yeah.
I was livid because literally nothing about any of that had to do with her weight. And I just couldn't believe the audacity for that to be printed on a piece of paper and given to her because she had an infection. Like, what?
Not weight related at all.
No.
And like urgent care. Like,
I know.
What do you think that's going to do to somebody? Like,
stigmatize them.
Yeah. That's ridiculous. That makes me so mad. I've also thought about writing a letter. I think I feel like I'm inching more and more towards that because I just like want the physician to know.
Yeah.
And like at that time I just felt like kind of like powerless. Like I was just like, well, I have a back injury and blah, blah, blah. And she was like trying to just be like, well, can't you walk? And can't you do this? And I was like, yeah, but like, I don't want to. Like, that's okay. And like, this isn't a problem for me. So I don't know. I didn't tell her that I was a dietitian. I'm still like questioning if I want to play that card or just like be a human and be like, hey, this was like not a really cool thing to say. And I don't really understand why you had to bring it up, but I'm going to be like switching providers. So
yeah.
Yeah, it's icky. I hate it. I hate it for myself. I hate it for like anybody that has that experience. And I think like knowing that like we don't have to get weighed. And like even if you do, like I got weighed and I was just like, oh, whatever, it's like my yearly checkup thing. But like I ate lunch and breakfast before, and I had snacks, and I was wearing like cargo pants that were super heavy. Like none of these questions, like things were addressed. And then I was like, the scale is such a finicky variable thing. Like nothing was asked about that. I like was even not even told to take off my shoes. I was like, but I did. But I was like, okay, this is silly. So, oh, it's frustrating, for sure. But I'm hoping that it's definitely a wave in the dietetics world. I'm like curious how much of a wave it's causing in like the physician world.
Yeah. My worry is that the tendency that we can have when we've learned something to get like entirely too aggressive about it and not have that empathy for the people who don't see your way and get like too like ranty. Like obviously I think this, like the things we're discussing are 100% great, but sometimes it can get like really intense, and then it starts to be like, oh well, those like then it creates an even bigger divide. And I'm just like, I feel like we're riding a pretty thin line with that, with some of the things I see even in the like HAES world sometimes, and I'm like, oh, why? Like why? There's things I would say in private about certain things I read, but I would never like post that, because it's not, that anger doesn't help. So it's so hard to be like polite but give enough of a attitude where it's like, yeah, like I'm standing up for myself, but educate at the same time without just coming across like you're going to push them further into their beliefs. Like that's hard.
So hard. Yeah. I mean, it's like sitting in two different camps. It's like kind of like the two different political parties. Probably because I'm from DC. But I like, how do you like deliver a message that's like within your beliefs and like what you know to be true in a way that the other side can like understand it, or like the people who are not on the other side, like a kind of in between people. And I think it's really hard to like find that way. I know oh my gosh, Dietitian Diana on Instagram, Anna Sweeney, has like always talked about how like her messages are very direct, but like they kind of have to be that way. Like diet culture is very direct.
Yeah.
And not saying that we want to like take anything from diet culture,
Right.
but just like having a lot of fluff isn't helpful either. So it's so hard. I mean, I posted something recently that got some like my first like comments or DMs that like weren't that nice.
Oh,
and
really?
like, yeah. And it was like, I see where they were like what their points were, but like I also, Roxanne Gay has this like tweet that's pinned to her Twitter still right now, saying that like she can't really be everybody's cup of tea. In her words, like way more eloquent, but like her tweets are her thoughts, and like she knows that like they aren't going to like reach everybody, and everybody has their own interpretations of it, and that's okay. And that's kind of how I felt about with like mine. I was like, yeah, there's going to be things that like don't really resonate with people, and people are going to take it like as a complete different way and perspective, and that's like the beauty of the world, and that's okay. I mean, of course it like didn't feel great when I got it, and I was like, oh my god, like what did I do wrong? I should have said this. But it's like a tweet, you're only given so many characters.
Right. Yeah. No, it's not, that is a complex issue, but just trying to, I guess that's a personal growth thing, to always be trying to remember like you literally can't make everyone happy with what you say. So as long as you're honoring like what you know is right, it's the best you can do as an advocate. So
yeah. And like we weren't taught marketing. We had like what, communication with food, but like I don't even remember really that class, which is like, I mean, I know that like the professors were probably great, but like I wasn't like ready to hear that probably. And I don't know, it's just like a whole different world. And it kind of also shows that division of like diet culture. Like people are trained to like get these messages out, how to like use ads in like such a like way that spreads fast. Whereas like we're just over here on Instagram like posting something, hoping somebody sees it and resonates with it, and then calling it a day. And that's okay. I think like having the choice of like, I'm not out here trying to like be like a huge influencer, or like trying to like reach a ton of people, but like the people who do follow me, I want to like help and want to like be there for. saying out this out loud and telling myself it at the same time.
That's awesome. I know this talk has been helpful for me in a lot of ways because you're the first like fully immersed HAES dietitian, whether or not anyone else has those beliefs, but like publicly is able to be that in their job. Because we've interviewed people just with their stories, but like as far as someone that we can have these conversations with, you're our first our interview. So
I'm honored.
This is a really cool conversation for me personally. I feel pretty fired up right now about this field.
Yeah, I know. But it's also like, I was just listening to something probably like a few weeks ago, probably like before quarantine, since I've like not been able to take much nutrition info. But the person was saying how, I can't remember who, but she was saying that I think it was a Facebook comment. This lady was saying that she was a dietitian and then quit because like nothing was like aligning with her values, and she ended up like finding intuitive eating later on, and she was like, oh my gosh, this is like exactly what I believe in. So like now she's like kind of coming back to the dietetics world. But I was like, that totally could have been me.
Yeah,
I would have been so fed up, I think, with like prescribing the same things to every person every day, and like the monotony of it, and not feeling like challenged, or I guess like, okay, that sounds a little extreme. Probably would have felt challenged in other ways, but like ways that didn't really line up with me.
right.
And I would have probably found a different field. I feel like, who knows what I would have done.
Yeah,
florist. That was like, that'd be a nice one. But yeah, it's nice to like feel like we belong in like the spaces that we're all in.
Mm-hmm. That is a really nice thing to reflect on, even though sometimes it's really hard. It's like, we know this is where we're supposed to be.
Yeah, even though it can be really frustrating. Going to Fancy sometimes, I'm like, but it's like, yeah, I'm glad that although social media and I have an interesting relationship, and it's usually, I don't love it, but the thing that I love the most about it is like connecting with other like-minded people.
Mm-hmm. So. That's like, as many times as I have been tempted to completely get rid of it from my life, I'm just like, but there's so much good that comes with that connectedness.
Yeah. I think I took like a year and a half off of my Instagram account when I first made it for like 6 months, and it just became like too overwhelming. I was like finishing out my internship and that wasn't going great. And then I was just like overwhelmed with life, and taking that year and a half off was so nice. Like, I feel like I came back with like clearer boundaries, like asking some of my friends on Instagram, like what they do, and like not checking it in the morning and night, which is so hard and not something I've been doing great at this week, or the past weeks, but you know, being gentle with yourself.
Yeah.
And it's been like so nice to just connect with people and have this like space. And there was something that Alyssa Rumsey posted today that I've literally read to 2 clients.
Yeah.
Like having like that information and then just like being able to like share it to like reinforce things that we're saying is just really cool.
Absolutely. I'm constantly screenshotting and sending things every day from Instagram that help like later on.
Oh yeah. I just like have everything saved. And I like what today on my clients, I was just like, oh, hold on, you know, like go through and find it. But I just felt like it's a good way to like be kind of in the know and like have like current takes on things. Like I would have never heard about Noom, the anti-diet that's actually a diet, if it wasn't for Instagram. Like Weight Watchers changing their names, I didn't know that until Instagram. Like it's a nice place for me to kind of like feel like I'm in the know, especially with things that like our clients are experiencing.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. It is a news source, which is kind of terrifying.
Yeah, I know.
Absolutely.
But it is.
Yeah.
I know, it kind of terrifies me at the same time. Yeah, that's like we spend I mean, I should speak for myself, but I spend so much time on it, even though I have like limits and stuff, that I just somehow always press 15 minutes longer.
Oh yeah.
Like automatically.
A little bit more. Yeah.
Yeah.
More for today, please.
Yeah. Yeah. That's happened recently too. And I'm like, well, the whole day, here we go. But like, there are definitely some benefits to it. And I think having that like time off, I was like able to like see what I like really missed. And like having those boundaries, even if sometimes they aren't as strong, and just kind of like being like, whatever, like I'll log off of my Instagram for like a week and just like try to get back to like ground myself, and then I'll go back when I feel like it. So
yeah,
kind of all fits the like intuitiveness of eating. I feel like intuitive eating is like kind of how I just like want to live my whole life, with like movement or like hanging out with people. I don't know, just like what I do in my day to day.
Yeah,
it's a good philosophy.
it is.
Self-care, like for real.
Yeah, just like doing things that feel good. Yeah.
Absolutely.
What is one thing that you do for like self-care thing that you do for yourself outside of like work and that realm?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say I love taking baths.
Ooh, me too.
Yeah. And I'm super lucky to have like my own bathtub. So I love taking baths. I have like a giant Epsom salt bag that I put into like a flower vase that I found in our townhome. And I'll just like pour some in. And then I like set up some candles, and I like got a bath tray that I like can put my laptop on if I want to like watch something on Netflix. I ideally try to read, but that doesn't happen as much. I've been trying to leave my phone out, which has been very helpful. So I think that feels like a big hug for me and like something that I look forward to.
I love that.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm gonna have to utilize that more.
Forget showers, just bathe. It'll be something and hygiene forever.
I know. Like always in my bathtub. I definitely went through a phase where I like basically only took baths. It was weird, but it happened.
Okay. Yeah, no judgment.
Yeah.
Is there any like last, you've said so many incredible things so far, but any last like nuggets or gems or thoughts that you want to leave with our listeners as we wrap up today?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, I don't know, just like taking things that we said and things that Jenna and Dani talk about like on the podcast and just like processing through them is important. Like whether that's journaling or whether it's just like turning off, like if you're listening while just like hanging out in your bed or walking or wherever you are in the car, just like sometimes I like listen to a podcast and then I'll just go like immediately into the next thing without giving me much time to just like sit with it and like process what I just heard. So I think processing it could be helpful, and like if there were things that resonated with you, like maybe like journaling about it and like writing about some of the experiences and examples that you felt were like coming up while you were listening.
I love that.
And also give yourself compassion if like you don't want to journal about it and you just want to listen to it and then go on to something else, because that's totally fine. And I am somebody who does both. So yeah, but this was so much fun.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I really enjoyed this conversation.
It's nice to like see you guys too on Zoom.
I'm, as much as I like the in-person, like, well, I don't know what I'm saying.
Danielle, do you not want me to come over?
No, I do. I literally like, as soon as I started that thought, I was like, that actually makes no sense. I have no idea where I'm going with this. I'm gonna blame that on my long Tuesday, because that literally
and your kombucha.
I'm brain dead now. So
No, this was awesome. It was so good to see you again, even over screen. And I'm sure we'll see each other at some conference soon. And Jenna, it was great to meet you.
Oh, so nice to meet you too.
Yeah, I have to follow you on Instagram and everything.
Super quick, Molly, before you go, where can people find your message?
Oh, yeah. So 2 places that are probably easiest to find me. One is my Instagram account at taco_bout, BOUT_nutrition, where I taco about nutrition. And then also you could shoot me an email at Molly, B as in boy, REM as in Mary, ERRD @gmail.com, which is an email account that I made like 2 weeks ago.
Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah. Trying to make a more professional email account. It was time.
I feel that.
Yeah. Okay, good.
All right. Well, again, thank you so much. This was great.
But this was so fun. It was like a real conversation.
Yes, I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
This is great.
Yeah. And I love what you guys are doing.
Thanks.
Thank you. You too.
Okay. Well, good luck out there in these COVID times.
Yeah, you too.
Bye, Molly.
It's crazy. Yeah. Thanks for bearing with the headphones too. That was wild.
You're fine.
Okay. I'll see you guys later.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
So thank you guys so much for listening. That was such a fun interview to do with Molly. So you know where to find her. And just a quick reminder, if you want to keep up with us on social media, our joint account is @FitFieldFree. My personal account is DMarliaL, and Jenna's is JenFit. And you can also shoot us an email at fitfieldfree@gmail.com. And we love to hear from you. Any questions, comments, concerns, and if you could give us a rating and review on iTunes, that would be fantastic so we can reach more listeners. Thank you guys so much. We'll talk to you next week.
Bye.